Right, turn to this now. Public Service and Administration Minister Mzamo Buthelezi has promised South Africans that service delivery is at the heart of the Government of National Unity. Briefing the media on the launch of the 2024 Integrated Public Service Month, the minister asked public servants to ensure that they serve South Africans with integrity. This comes after yet more damning reports by the Auditor-General Tsakani Maluleke. Now, for more on that, I'm joined by Professor Somadoda Fikeni, chairperson of the Public Service Commission. Prof, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. The public report, or the Auditor-General's report, shall I say, before the portfolio committee would have reflected that at least there's a regression in some metros, in some key metros especially, Cape Town being the exception, being one of the metros that has done well. But she points out something quite significant, that where there is regression and where there is bad audit, one, you'd find there's misuse of the grants. Two, there is overuse of consultants to prepare the documents. Even performance reports are not found there. So we took this conversation to Mzamo, and we asked the municipal workers, say, what is the problem? What is actually happening there? This is what they highlighted. They said to us, municipalities are not professionalized, and we've been calling for this for years. SALGA, yes, is taking up the policy, but what we have found is that deployment is still based on politics and not on professionalization. Are you in agreement with that statement, that you're not sure whether we are dealing with qualified people, especially when it comes to dealing with finances?
Well, I do think that there are a number of factors. Some were highlighted by the Auditor General. One of those is the political instability. Once you do have instability, issues of loyalty and the issues of trust become a challenge. And once you have instability, you also have a situation where the leadership turnover is so high that they do not invest enough time on appointing the right people. And sometimes they walk in and they realize that they find people who were appointed by the previous administration or the previous coalition arrangement, and they do not work well with them. So that in itself is one of many other factors. The second one is indeed the one of professionalization, which is quite fundamental in the ecosystem of accountability and oversight. And hence you find that at times the use and the overuse of consultants is to augment that skill which is lacking. But at the same time, even if you augment with consultants, if you do not know what you wanted out of the consultants, you'll always have it wrong.
So is it something that is as simple as just from now on we are going to emphasize on capability to resolve this issue?
One, you need to have some degree of regulation of coalition so that some degree of stability is there. Even if there are changes, there is something to regulate that particular space so that it can be predictable. And the second one, once you do have professionalization, which is going to be applied at national, provincial, and local government level, in terms of filtering who comes in having integrity test, having competency test, and in-service training, it's part of that particular aspect. And one of those, once the Public Service Commission bill is passed, then you'll have an added eye in terms of oversight over local government. Right now, there is no oversight body per se, as would be in the provincial and national level, to deal with career incidents, to deal with other challenges, or even service delivery reports in terms of overseeing and inspecting what is happening in that space, which was the same situation as your state-owned companies, which are also bound to be under the gaze of the Public Service Commission once the Act itself is passed.
So does the bill then go far enough to separate the politics of leadership and the administration? so that when there's a change in political leadership, administration is not affected?
Professionalization framework and the Public Management Act and the creation of a single public administration, as well as the PSC bill, are in the same basket of trying to delineate the role between politics and administration, between bureaucracy and politicians, to say this is your role and this is the role of a bureaucrat. And as such, there should be no unlawful instruction. PSC has even provided a guide to that effect. Once you apply all those, then you'll begin to see a difference, but it should not stop there. As you professionalize bureaucracy, you must also try to professionalize politics as well, and have some minimum standards and threshold that should be used in making sure that you have quality people deployed in politics, rather than all those factional dynamics and how you mobilize people. Because it's one thing to have a skill to rise to a position. It's another thing to have a skill to be a leader or a manager.
Yeah, Prof, but that means we are never going to remove this thing of pressure, because also we are, very same labor says no, but you can't say people who are holding particular office cannot participate in politics. So these very same individuals can be CFO, they are still participating in politics. So as much as you are saying you can put these standards and regulations to say we are trying to insulate you, they don't insulate themselves. They participate in politics, and so they don't remove themselves from the political pressure.
Most of the reforms as they come will actually achieve just that. To say, if you decide to be a professional in the bureaucracy of local government or provincial or national, you cannot participate in politics. There should be a delineation in that particular space. So the move generally is in that direction. The creation of a single public administration is also another major step, because right now there was one set of laws focusing on national and provincial, another set of laws focusing on local government, another set of laws focusing on workers in parliament, another set of laws focusing on the state-owned companies which were having their boards and so forth. No single administration was in place, hence the fragmentation. So once you create a single administration, it will be easy to standardize most of these policies, which say you'll have to choose whether you get into politics or you get into the bureaucracy.
Is there a political party that is doing well in this aspect of separation of politics and administration? Because I asked Mzamo says, as far as they're concerned, there's no political party that's doing well, because even if you look at IFP-run municipalities, ANC-run municipalities, DA-run municipalities, you're still coming across the same problem. It's even worse where then there are coalitions that are running that particular administration.
At this stage, in my own observation, there is no political party that is immune to some of the challenges that we see. It's usually easy, and they can see clearly when they are at a distance and in opposition, not in power. But once they get into power, as history will tell us, they tend to lean on people they know better, and those people will be drawn from within their cycles. And professionalization framework is trying to assist in that process of saying, irrespective of any party that you may find yourself in, let's have a clear process to determine who is competent and have filters in terms of integrity, in terms of competence, and even have training for those who are already in place, and have very clear professional performance management system, as well as consequence management should a person not perform, or should a person be insubordinate because they think it's another political party, it's another leader who is now coming to oversee me. So once we have that delineation, it will benefit the nation and it will be standardized irrespective of which party is in power, which coalition is in power or not.
There is an intervention that is announced. I don't know whether it's just an intervention to delay this process of professionalization or it's a beneficial intervention. It's the intervention of the presidential task team that, for example, has been sent to eThekwini to deal with that municipality. And the suggestion is that that particular task team can then be sent to other municipalities. I think it's 10 that would have been identified that are struggling in various parts, according to the COGTA Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa. Is that temporary intervention working? Some whose view is that there's very little difference that these task teams bring because they look at it as something that is pretty much similar to placing a municipality under administration. That never produces any results. One, there's no recovery that they have seen. Two, there's no clean audits that would have come out of that process.
Well, when you do have a task team, one would assume that it's a targeted approach to say, municipality A, you have this particular problem, and we bring in a set of skills to attend to those areas. If it was a financial or governance or project management, you bring that team to actually strengthen those areas. But it does not replace and should not be seen as a replacement of these public sector reforms, which are meant to make sure that you do not have these problems recurring. You strengthen the institutional capacity of the state at a level of a bureaucracy, at a level of public service, whether at a local government level or provincial or national. So the public administration is being made to be more effective so that in future you won't have to have these interventions which are targeted on municipality A, municipality B, municipality C. And that in itself is very much important. Of course, in the engagements with SALGA, with COGTA, and with many other experts in the area, the whole notion of looking at a model of revenue generation and a model of municipalities, how districts relate to local and how metros are run, is equally important in terms of the architecture of the institution itself if we want long-term solutions.
Interesting that you bring that question of revenue because the other issue that would have come out from the Auditor's General report is the performance reporting that is not happening, or service delivery reporting, if you like. When I put that to the labor union, they're saying, well, that would be as a result, for example, of the AG's report, which tells us that there have been material losses to the tune of 7 billion rands. Only 261 million of that would have been recovered. And what that means is that sometimes municipal workers have got to go to work without the material that they need because of this money that is being lost. And this is money that could be used certainly to equip municipal workers to do their work properly. What's your view on those losses?
Well, I do think that workers should be equipped with all the important tools of trade for them to do their work. And that's what we've propagated right across, not only in municipalities, so that they have some degree of dignity in the space where they work, and that motivates them. But it does not stop there, though. The issues of the recovery of monies lost means the whole cooperative governance system, especially when we are launching the Public Service Month with a theme of cooperative government and an integrated approach, means you cannot have a situation where you are told national department, provincial departments are not paying municipalities, and therefore some businesses are not paying municipalities, some citizens are not paying municipalities. Of course, at times it can be complex in a sense that you also have the billing problem. When the validity and the accuracy of billing and reading of meters is a problem, it becomes down the stream a political problem. rather than being just a technical process of seeing services rendered and services given. And you do have the whole myriad of things of illegal connections of water, of electricity, and all those things. So it would take the entire state working as an integrated whole rather than leaving it to a municipality in some instances. Because some smaller municipalities may not even have law enforcement to make sure that they monitor such things from happening. Yeah. So government should work as a unit rather than leaving that small municipality, which hardly have any resources to deal with criminality at times or to deal with just non-cooperation.
So, I mean, right on that, do you think then, therefore, we could have poorly imagined this idea of a district development model? Because it's, in a sense, supposed to do exactly that, but I don't know if it is translating the way that the president would have imagined it would.
On paper, it looks very good, but as we interacted in our citizens' forums as the public service commissions with premiers across the country and with MECs, they said, for as long as this is not regulated through a legislation, to say this is how this should happen. For now, it works on voluntary basis, which means if people want to work or as silos, there is no consequence for that. But if it was regulated in a sense of saying, should we want to build a hospital here, those who want to bring water, those who want to bring roads and so forth, the planning is sequenced in that particular manner, that you'd begin to see the benefits of the district development model. But at another level, the reason integration doesn't work is because those who may want to loot and do wrong things, they do not work well in an integrated space where you bring different role players. They want a fiefdom, which they are in full control of, so that they can actually do the wrong things or disperse all the goodies to the networks and the patronage networks they have. So that, again, is something that we should, if it needs further regulation, be considering, so that it's not just in theory and it's not a voluntary work where personalities have a good chemistry, then therefore they can have a district development model working. But it should be regulated with laws that say when you plan, consider the following from different levels of government.
Going back to coalitions not being properly regulated, now we have a government of national unity, some form of coalition at provincial, even at national level. But it's currently functioning on something called a statement of intent, with a view of going to a national dialogue and maybe coming up with something a little bit more formal and more concrete. Have you had a perusal of that statement of the intent and what it means and how it could translate maybe even in managing local governments?
Well, I do think that it would need more than a statement of intent, but rather a regulation to say, before elections, how do you arrange for any possible coalition arrangement or minority government or super coalition or any other permutation of these? And should A happen, what should happen to B and C? Right now, even the question of who will be the opposition party in parliament, it was still being debated after effect. But if you had a regulated space, you would know, should certain parties come together and be in government, this is the next party that will be in opposition. Should this change over time, this is how you are going to change it. Right now, we make laws and even regulations on the basis of emergency, it's exigency measures, because it's already there. So it can't be perfect in that sense. That's why benchmarking from countries which have been in this coalition arrangement for the longest time and begin to say what regulations are needed is very much important. Such a dialogue on national coalitions or on coalitions was made, but it was too close to elections. Once you come too close to elections, levels of suspicion are heightened, and therefore people can't rationally look at some of the implications of step A, step B, because each one of the proposals is viewed with suspicion, and at times some role players see existential crisis out of everything that you propose.
So as we come into this public service month, I mean, what will you be highlighting?
Integration, cooperation, and the issue of professionalism. That in itself is key. And in such professionalism, as Minister Buthelezi often say, putting people first. It is not that important to say I have a good annual report, nor for that matter important as it is important to have a clean audit to say I can account for the fees and I can account for some of the things I'd said I would do. But ultimately, we should be asking ourselves, what is the mandate of that department, of that municipality, of that government? And what was the intended impact on the people? Hence, the notion of people-centeredness becomes very much important. We once had Batupile, it was there, except that the very practice of it was not to be felt. Recovering that and having to humanize public service and have Ubuntu is very much important. So when we say let's cooperate, let's integrate, as the theme so says, that should be felt by a person on the ground. It's not just a cooperation between departments or municipality and so forth. It's to say let's cooperate for impact that is felt by the people, that is felt by the state itself, and people begin to see improvement in their lives. So people-centeredness and service-oriented and integrating or cooperating in whatever we do. That is more important now that we have fiscal challenges, because efficiency comes out of cooperation rather than duplication.